Welcome to Tama Talks, brought to you by the Torrance Art Museum Advocates. I'm Janine Madden, current TAMA president, and I'd like to thank you for watching. We'll be joined today by artist Stephen Wolkoff, who was the inaugural artist for the Torrance Art Museum TAMA-sponsored Artist in Residency program last year in Paros, Greece. The partnership between the Torrance Art Museum and Cycladic Arts in Alyki,
Yep.
Alyki aims to facilitate artistic exchanges as part of the TAM's continued effort to build global bridges and networks among artists, a cornerstone of TAM's mission. This discussion is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel with all of our previous TAMA Talks. You can access it from our website, www.tamadvocates.com. Stephen Wolkoff is a Los Angeles-based artist. He graduated from Dartmouth College and as an honors English major, yet emerged as a painter. His three-dimensional language paintings explore the boundaries of the medium of paint and forge a link between formalist and conceptual art. He has shown in galleries in Los Angeles, New York, Berlin, Beijing, Stockholm, Luxembourg, Mexico City, Budapest, Madrid, and Tokyo. And his work has been featured in Artillery Magazine, Architectural Digest, and Poets and Artists Magazine. The latter, poetry, being the focus of his time in Greece, with his project about the poetry of Archilochus the Parian, 7th century BC, where he created an interactive Google map of Paris's sites, referencing fragments of Archilochus's poetry. How's that? That's a tongue twister.
Yeah, a little bit.
So we're super glad that you're here, and we're really excited to hear about your journey to Greece. Tell us all about it and what your experience is there with Cycladic Arts.
Great. Thank you for having me. Thank you for sending me to Paros. It was an amazing trip, and I appreciate it. So when I sent in my proposal for the residency, I did some research on Paros, and one thing I found was Archilochus, who was one of the biggest, probably the biggest celebrity to come out of the island of Paros in the ancient era. He was the second biggest poet of his time after Homer. He was huge. He was a colossus of ancient Greek poetry. And when I got to the island, I was surprised that there was really very little about him there. There was a little statue in the main town. There was a couple things, small things in the museum. There's a cave named after him. But for the level of status he had as a poet, I was just expecting more. If you went to Stratford, you would see a million things about Shakespeare, pubs, hotels, B&Bs, whatever. But in Paros, very, very, very little. So I thought there was room there for something to work on. I think part of the reason Archilochus isn't maybe as well known as some other ancient poets like Homer now is his work was largely lost to time. It only exists in fragments these days. Some fragments are longer than others. Some are just a word or part of a word. So what I decided to do was to take those remaining fragments of poetry and turn them into a walking tour of the island of Paros through the lens of those fragments of poetry. And I used Google Maps to do that. So as you wander around the island, explore the island, you can see the sites through his poetry and to get a sense of things, of maybe the world he experienced or the way he would see the current island based upon his viewpoint and his remaining words. To help me with that, I found a great book of his poetry by Laura Swift, who is an professor at Oxford who did the most recent translation of his poetry. the fragments of his poetry. And she was very gracious to help me with my project, to let me use her translations and her knowledge to do a better job of this program. And so as we walk around the island, we can made a little icon of Archilochus's head. I used Photoshop for that. And we can use this custom Google map to experience the island in a different way. Right now, Paros has become very tourism heavy. That's I think their main economy these days is tourism, and this is a slightly different way of experiencing the island than maybe what the multitudes of tourists who are looking for beaches and nightlife are going for, which is just a nice addition to the offerings the island can have. Can we click to see
We
the map?
can, we can. And before we do that, I have a quick couple questions.
Oh,
One,
please.
was this something that you were interested in before you knew you were going over to Cycladic art? Did you have an interest in his work prior?
No, to be honest, I didn't know he existed prior. So,
Okay, that's actually even more intriguing and cool, because that opportunity to learn something so in depth that you went into while you were there without knowing anything beforehand, I think is pretty cool. So
oh, absolutely. It was a great opportunity. I learned about, he's an amazing poet whose work is, I think, still quite vital today. He would have a lot to say with I think his work holds up in ways
iambic
not.
pentameter, is he the inventor,
Oh,
or is that questionable, or
okay, so the ancient understanding of iambic is different from what our understanding of what we learned in high
okay.
school is. So that's what I thought too when I started. And it turns out it's a little different. He was the first recorded person in certainly in ancient Greece at least to write about himself, and that's what iambic means in that case.
Oh,
Where previous poets were writing about gods and heroes and huge things like that, he was writing about his everyday life. His everyday life was quite interesting. He was a mercenary. He was an interesting guy who had a very interesting life. Uh, he was, I think, in some ways we could say he was the first gangster rapper.
yeah, I got that feeling in some of the research I did, that there was an edge to him.
He was very edgy. He was banned from Sparta because they thought his poetry would upend their whole system of life. I think one of his most famous fragments, I don't have it memorized, but we can look for it in just a second. He was writing about being in battle and throwing away his shield so that he could save his life and that he could always just buy another shield, which was the exact opposite of what Spartans believed in. It was either come back with your shield or on it,
Right.
with your shield or die. And they were afraid that Archilochus's way of viewing life would change their whole society in ways they didn't want, or threaten their society in ways they didn't want.
Yeah, that's certainly not an unfamiliar refrain many places. So this is the Photoshop image that you were referring to?
Yeah, so I just designed just a little icon to use on the map. So
Okay.
that's
And
based
then,
upon the statues that remain of him and there. So we've dotted the island with a bunch of Archilochus heads. And
so tell us, before we get to the interactive map, this is where you, I'm sorry, I don't have a larger map of Greece
oh,
comparison, but you flew into Paros.
oh, so I flew into Athens and then
Okay.
I took a ferry from Athens to Paros.
Okay.
Uh, I was a little jet lagged on that ferry, and we stopped off at a whole bunch of other islands on the way to Paros. So it was an interesting ride. And they got to Paros. Okay, my cursor doesn't work on your map, unfortunately, but
Oh, Uh,
Uh, if you see the sort of around 9 o'clock on the map, is where the ferry arrives, a little higher up, where all those heads are, more or less. Yeah, like roughly there. So the ferry comes into there, and then if you go directly down from there, that should be Alyki at the bottom of the map, that bottom head. Yeah, right there. So took the ferry over there, and then Dimitra was nice enough to pick me up, and we drove down to Cycladic Arts. And then I was staying there in Alyki for the month.
Wonderful. That's great. What a fantastic opportunity. What was your so tell us just a little bit about what an artist in residence is for those people who may not be familiar with that kind of a project. And what I understand that she often has people come and visit. That's one of the main draws of her facility. Yes.
Right. So Cycladic Arts, our facility is, she has an artist residency for 3 artists with studio space provided. And there's also a connected art gallery where she's hosting regular art shows. The building is in Alyki, which is a small fishing village. Her family has lived there for a very, very, very long time. And the residency is in what was her grandparents' great grandparents' house, uh, which has now been converted to this wonderful art space. And I think in general, artists go there or go to other artist residencies to just have time to focus on their work. And what I did when I was there was, and there was very nice studio space available for me, but I quickly realized that this project was going to require less actual studio time and more time exploring Archilochus's poetry and the translations available, and then exploring the island.
I was
So,
just going to say, because it looks like you sort of dotted the perimeter pretty much. How long did it take you to get around the entire island?
so there's a very nice bus system that works pretty well. And I took that and I just went exploring most days and went looking for places that would somehow tie in. I'm still expanding and working on this map, and Dimitra is helping me with it, or just scheduling time. So the map is going to be updated more.
Oh,
There are
great.
some more fragments that haven't been included yet. And when we're
But they
done, it should
exist.
be.
Do they exist and you just didn't get to them, or do they have yet to still be discovered?
Oh, no, no, they exist. And it's not that I didn't get to them, it's pairing them with the right place on the island.
I see. Okay.
And some of them just require finding the right place, which on my own as a tourist visiting the island, I might not have been the best person to locate them or identify them.
And what
So
did you use as a resource to know where to look?
I just went exploring, and I just read about the island and just, searched the internet and searched tourist websites and other things and government history websites and whatever was available.
Okay. Well, let's see if I can navigate successfully back to the interactive map that you created.
Mhm.
So this is actually showing us. Okay, so
Oh, so
here.
that's a different island.
Okay.
And then so if
Zeus's
you go a little,
childhood cave. What
where is
a
it?
see right here, Zeus's childhood
Oh,
cave.
wow. Okay.
That's pretty cool. And the Temple of Apollo. It makes me want to make sure we hit there in June. Okay, so
Maybe I
here
didn't
we
know. So
are.
that's Naxos. Okay, so Naxos is the next island over. I didn't get to visit, but I was on Paros, and then I visited Antiparos, which is a little more to the left.
Yeah.
Um, and there is a famous cave on Antiparos where Archilochus spent some time supposedly.
Okay.
So I visited there as well, and just click whatever place you'd like on the map.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm going to click the first one just so we can see how it works, because I will I know that you said this is a work in progress, and so we could do this a couple of ways. I can embed this link underneath an image, either probably an image of the map, so that when people comes to the website, they can click on it and be taken there directly. Are you
Yeah.
okay with me doing
Yeah,
that?
I think that's great.
Okay,
And
it's
yeah,
not no one can alter it, correct?
no, we're good.
Okay,
So I will keep on working on it.
yes.
And then ultimately we're hoping that it can turn not just into a digital project, but into a physical project for the island, where the fragments of his poetry will be placed, physically around the island. That's the hope. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
But this is the first step in a multi-step process we're hoping for to bring his poetry back to the island a little more fully.
So this fragment 94 is located here on your map, very close, it seems, to where your where you were where you got off the ferry.
Yes.
Okay. And the description of it. So tell me, when you say fragment, is it a piece of paper? Is it a rock? Is it a stone tablet?
I think his work, and I am not an expert on this, I think his work exists in a bunch of different ways. And yeah, like pieces of papyrus, I guess, or maybe
Mhm.
stone in which it remains on, and there's only little bits of it left. Parts of his work were quoted by other authors after his life,
Okay.
or maybe during his life, but then those works survived. So there's fragments that survive because other people wrote about him and quoted him. And then, and yeah, some things. I don't know why so much of his work was lost.
Yeah, it would seem that you would want to hold on to that.
Yeah, he was very popular in his lifetime.
Yeah. Okay, so if we navigate to, and what I was going to say is, let me get to 11 here. Okay, so 11 looks like it was on Antiparos.
Oh, okay. Um,
Is there an order? I'm only going in the order that you have them listed here, but
oh, that's just an order from how Google Maps set it up.
so
I'm not sure how, yeah.
if I click on the face, there we go. So if I click on the face, it will open up the map. I don't need to go in order.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So just click on, and there is no order. This is just if you're on the island or if you're just at home wherever, you can click on anything that looks interesting to you and find a fragment of poetry. And then in real life, you can read that fragment of poetry. And here we can stop there for 1 second. So you can look at that fragment of poetry in the context of a place, which, depending upon the place, Archilochus may have experienced something just like that, or he'd be looking at it these days, and maybe in those ways. That head you just clicked on there, fragment 211, is in Alyki. And that is it's a little fishing village, or at least historically it was a little fishing village. It's now a little more touristy, but it's very nice. And that quote I put on a little fishing hut thing,
Okay.
where they work on nets, and they have their boats right there in the harbor there. And
Okay.
so it's a little fragment about a fisherman.
Did you travel this way? Should we continue up the, oh, this is a long one.
Oh, okay. So I think that is in Drios. Yeah.
Yes.
And that
We,
is there was an ancient harbor there that was maybe from his time, or around, a lot older than now. And all that's left of that are just some ruins. But that was a place where there were swift ships on the sea. And yeah, Drios was a very nice little village I got to visit.
so if we click here, are
Yeah.
you seeing that map, that
I
image.
am seeing, so that is a photo of what you might be looking at as you were reading that quote, and that is where in many, many, many centuries ago, there would have been a bunch of boats there and shipping.
I see.
And I believe that's looking, well, off into another island. I think that's Naxos.
Okay. Oh,
There's a lot of
and
cats.
these are
on
just
it.
uploaded photos that people who have been to the same place would can upload to Google
Yeah,
Maps.
exactly. So this is all connected to just the Google Map experience, which we've all had some experience with at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
and yeah, just as we keep looking around, maybe if we go back to where the ship came into port on the like around 9 o'clock. Yeah, let's click some of those.
okay. I'm
Oh,
one.
okay.
Go ahead.
Go back to that one.
No,
Oh,
fragment one in
um,
scope
yeah,
up.
fragment one. That's great. So, this is a famous remaining fragment. That's the fragments are numbered in the order which some academics came up with for numbering Archilochus's fragments.
Okay. And
And
pardon me for all of the automatic population of Google Maps that's telling you where to go to
oh
sleep and eat.
no, this is how Google Maps works.
Yes.
And yeah, so this is just another way you can experience the island. You can go looking for hotels, you can go looking for car rentals. They show all these things for restaurants or now for Archilochus fragments.
Mm-hmm. So this is fragment. So by calling this fragment one, was that just a random assignment by Google, or is
Oh,
that?
no. This
Oh,
is so there are a whole bunch of fragments of his poetry, around 300 something. And some scholars came up with, a long time ago, came up with a system for numbering his fragments, and that
I
seems
see.
to have
Okay.
persisted. So, so this is fragment number one. It's Archilochus writing about himself, that he's an expert in the lovely gift of the muses. So
Yeah.
that he's an expert poet. And that is, I believe, on the library there.
Okay. I can go to the image. And so again, people just kind of taking photos of where, so this is where that fragment was located.
Right. So that fragment is Archilochus praising himself as you know, a master poet, and it's on the library in the main town of Paros. And oh yeah. Um it's a quote about a wall, and that's sort of the most famous wall in Paros. And it's made up of parts from an ancient temple that was there, I think maybe, and was turned into a wall by later invaders. But it's a great wall. And so I included his fragment of poetry about the wall. So that wall was not there when he was alive, to the best of my understanding, but it fit the fragment.
Okay. Yeah, so it almost is in ruins. I think you were saying there was a church on that.
So originally there was, you know, not a temple
Okay.
from, you know,
Oh,
ancient
yes, I was reading about
civilization.
this,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Oh, okay. And that fragment is, okay, I'm not sure what that photo is, but that should be in the museum, I think. There is, yep. So in that museum on Paros, there are two remaining things of Archilochus, and one
Oh,
is from his tomb, and it's of him reclining with some on a seat with his spear at his side and some wine, I believe.
okay.
And the quote is similar to that.
Okay. Yes, it reminded me of Winged Victory. And so I was
Yeah.
searching that. I just kind of went down a million rabbit holes.
So that is, yeah, the biggest museum on Paros, and smaller than Tam, but they have some nice things there. Oh, okay. So right there, let's stick with fragment 116 for a second.
Sure.
So away with Paros and those figs and that life at sea. Um, that quote is where the ships leave.
Ah, okay.
And so as you're leaving Paros, Paros was and still is famous for its figs. There's figs growing all over the island. I was lucky enough to be there when they were in season and get to take figs off a tree and just eat them fresh, which was a great experience.
Mhm.
And yeah, and as you're leaving the island, you're leaving those figs behind in Paros, and this quote is seeing you out the door.
Ah,
Oh, okay. Um, this is a quote about someone who died and has been buried, and I put it in the ancient cemetery they have. And so that's ruins of some ancient cemetery.
interesting. And
And this
again,
is
I'm just kind of navigating so that when people watch and they'll know how to how to, get around the map a little. So
yeah, and so that's in Park, yeah, which is like the main town. That's where pretty much most people arrive when they're coming to Paros is through there.
and so then to get to fragment 8, you traveled to this sort of
I did.
if it would count as a
So
peninsula, but a little out.
yeah, it's a little bit of a peninsula. So I ended up walking around the whole. I was planning to take a boat there, but it was too rough that day. So I walked all the way around those two beaches, if you see.
From Alyki.
So from not from Alyki, I took a bus from Alyki to Parakia, so like where the mass of the heads are, where we just saw, like where that cemetery just was.
Yes.
And then from there, I just wandered and walked around those two beaches that are sort of two curves,
Yes.
and to that point there at the end of that little peninsula. And there is an ancient, well, I don't know how ancient. There's an old lighthouse there that
Okay.
I think is being restored, and I thought that quote fit of a lighthouse, welcoming sailors back to port.
Okay. So let's see if we head over to, I'm interested in this inland one. Oh, foreign road. So
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, great. So if you go to click on that one, please. So there is a famous old road in Paros that I'm just going to quickly
yeah.
Google to not screw it up here. Of course, my phone still turns Paros to Paris.
Yes. I got that a couple of times too.
Yeah. Wait, how do I get out of? Give me just 1 second here to get out of this thing so I can just
Sure.
um wait, how do I just make this not view options?
Yes, and you should be able to move that little, do you mean what you're looking at? Like
Oh,
what,
so I'm just trying to get out of the full exit full screen. That's what I was looking for. Give me 1 second here.
of course.
And okay, it's the ancient Byzantine road,
Oh,
and which is in Paros.
okay.
And it goes from the town of Lefkis to Hold on, I'm trying to remember. I'm now reading. It starts there and it travels to another town that I'm not remembering the name of at this moment.
That's okay. I mean, it looks like it's either going to go this way or to the
So it
sea.
goes the other way towards the ocean, towards the not the
Okay.
ocean, but towards the
Okay.
beach there, and so to the right, and it is an ancient road. It's the Byzantine road. It's been around forever, but for if Archilochus had been there, that road didn't exist during his lifetime. It was built well after he had died.
Okay.
So for him, and it was built by foreigners. So for him, it is a foreign road.
I see.
And so it's sort of fun to sort of keep in mind that, all these different layers of ages with this island and all the different layers of history as a result. And when filtered through him, this is just some road that was made by foreigners.
Hmm.
But if you're visiting Paros, it's a great little day trip to take a walk on that road.
With their lives in the arms of the waves.
Oh, right. So that is in Nausa, which used to be a major fishing village, and there still is fishing there. But it's really Paros's center of nightlife more than anything else.
Oh, okay.
But that's a quote of where I saw some fishermen repairing nets, and there still is a bunch of fishermen who work out of Nausa and its port. And yeah, their lives were in the arms of the waves. I mean, Paros is a major fishing economy.
Okay, so fragment 122,
Okay.
you should see it on your screen in a minute.
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Okay.
They're going to.
I'm reading too, sorry. So there is nothing in the world unexpected, or that you could swear is impossible or worthy of wonder, since Zeus, father of the Olympians, turned midday to night and hid away the light of the shining sun, and clammy fear came over mankind. It sounds like an eclipse.
Yeah.
So very cool. That's really an interesting take on, I mean, that's really all I can think that it could be.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems
It would
exactly.
be really
Yeah.
interesting to kind of go back in time. I'm not really sure how far back. I know we have a big eclipse coming up in the United States in April. And so
Oh,
it would be really interesting to kind of go back in time and see if when might have occurred, when one might have occurred in his lifetime, and kind of link that up.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, so this is
This looks like a lighthouse.
yeah, I'm
No,
trying to see what I'm trying to remember this.
this looks like the lens. No.
And I think part of why I put that there is that's a place where dolphins hang out, and there's dolphins in that quote as well.
Oh, right, right. It's beautiful. It looks very volcanic to me.
It's a really interesting island.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. The
I don't
water
know
is just,
about
yeah.
volcanic, but there's a lot of really interesting geography there.
Yeah, this looks very like geologically volcanic. Wow,
Hmm.
that's a beautiful picture. So things are very, okay, lighthouse. So things are very, would you say that they're pretty well marked? You could get to where did you have any trouble getting to where you needed to go?
Things are not always very well marked.
Ah, okay, okay,
But yeah, so there's some real exploring that happens sometimes.
okay.
But it was fun.
Well, good.
A couple times was a little dangerous, to be honest, but it was and a couple times it was wasted, no, wasted, but I used time differently than I expected to use it because the signs were not the best.
Okay.
So I was at one point taking a um I was walking back from the ancient marble quarries to the beach, and there was a few missing trail markers. So one of the other things Paros is known for is its amazing marble.
Oh, yes, that's
And
what the Winged Victory is made from, the Paros marble.
yeah, the Venus de Milo is made from marble from
Oh,
Paros.
yes.
Napoleon's tomb, sarcophagus, whatever it is made from it. A lot of ancient sculpture is made from marble from this island, which was considered some of the best marble in the world. And the quarries are there. So I went and visited them. And then from there, there's a nice hike back to the beach, which I took just to see more of the island. Um, some of it wasn't labeled very well. I ended up losing the path for a while and just wandering through some vineyards,
Oh,
which was also interesting. So,
good. Well, good for you. It sounds like quite a trip. And we're really happy to have been able to talk to you a little bit more about it and to hear about your experience. Do you feel like, in addition to the expansion of this map, do you feel like this will, I don't know, influence some of the work that you do? I know you're a painter, yes?
yeah, mostly I work with paint, and
Yes.
so this was different, and I used this trip as an opportunity to do something different than what I would typically do, which I was encouraged to look for just new ways of exploring my work. I could see doing, I'm not sure, let's say that I could see pursuing new paths that I hadn't considered before. And I'm excited to continue with this one and see it through. As I said, I'm really hoping that we can move it from being a digital map to that is shared with a few people to something that is first shared with more tourists to the island and people who live in the island, and then maybe ultimately grows beyond that. Um, and I think Tam should get some credit for fostering this. Which is just sort of a new way of looking at this island from how people have been looking at it recently. And then that's part of our job as artists, is to find new ways of looking at things.
Exactly. And letting others in on the secrets of what you find.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Are you okay if I stop sharing on the map?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. Well, again, any other closing thoughts that you have just on the journey in general, or recommendations that you might make for anyone wanting to either pursue the poetry of Archilochus? Yes.
Archilochus, yes. I don't think I'm saying it perfectly, but yeah, that's
I tried to listen to several pronunciations, and all of the ones I listened to were all different. So I just
yeah,
it's the
ultimately
emphasis part.
it's
Yeah.
ultimately in Greek. And the one thing I learned is what we learned in high school or wherever for pronouncing Greek letters is not really necessarily how Greek people pronounce them.
Right. 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 Yeah.
uh, so yeah, I thought Paros was a delightful island. I really enjoyed the time I spent there. It would be enjoyable to go back. I recommend that to anybody. The poetry, the the book I used, the Laura Swift book, which I put in the chat,
I saw that.
is
Yeah, I'll make sure I take a photo of it. I'll snap a photo of it and then I'll embed the link behind it so people can look at your resource.
oh awesome. It's the best existing book of his poetry. It's a book for academics.
Okay.
Um, that I'm not sure what the best resource for. Not, it's a little expensive and it's really comprehensive. Um, and it's written. The translations are written for academics who want to just get understand if they don't necessarily speak ancient Greek all that well. They can understand what each word means. But she herself has said she didn't translate it as poetry as much as she translated it as an academic.
Okay.
Um,
How are the people on the island as far as, knowledge of him, knowledge of his poetry, knowledge of the significance that he has to the island? Has it been lost sort of over, over centuries and generations, or is there an effort to sort of put him back in the limelight, so to speak?
I think he's somebody they learn about in school.
Ah,
So I
okay.
think everybody has a little exposure to him, but
Okay.
I'm going to guess that your average person is not spending a whole lot of time thinking about Archilochus ever.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and there are, and I was lucky to meet some people on the island who have put a lot of work into his poetry and his fragments. And
Okay.
so there are some people on the island who are quite invested in him. As I said, as a whole, no, the island doesn't seem to think about him all that much. There's no restaurants or bars or hotels or anything named after him. Uh, it's he doesn't currently have the legacy you would think he would have, given the status he enjoyed in Greek literature.
Yeah, and it doesn't flow off the tongue as easily as William Shakespeare either. So, or just Bard, right? He doesn't have a good, we just need to give him a good nickname like Archie, and then people might start naming bars and clubs after him. So,
Anything is possible.
exactly. Exactly. Well, I thank you so very much for explaining the map. We're really, really pleased that you had such a positive experience. I think also, for your own artistic journey, but also to encourage others to apply for the residency in the future. I know that Max is considering, having other folks visit her Cycladic arts facility, Dimitri, right?
Yeah.
And I think that he may also be looking in another place. I can't remember quite where. So it's really great for Tam to be not only looking at Los Angeles based artists, but also that huge international. I know has shown at Tam.
She has, yeah.
Yes.
And she has an international practice. Yeah. And Tam is punching way above its weight class. Tam is doing amazing work, which you and everybody there should be very proud of. And then
Yes.
we, as just Angelinos who get to enjoy this, are very lucky to have these experiences brought to us at this museum.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What a wonderful way to end. So I thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Really glad you could join us. So